Pink Shirt Day is coming up this February 26th. We are going to be talking about that a lot, presented by Coast Capital Savings. You can get your official pink T-shirt at London drugstores or at pinkshirtday.ca. And there's all kinds of great events that are focusing on bullying and how we can mitigate its harm in our community, how we can make kids aware, how we can talk about bullying in all kinds of different ways. And on February 21st, there's a great event that has a bit of a twist to it. You can take a step back in time to the days of knights and castles. Academy Duello will be hosting this in downtown Vancouver from 6 to 8 p.m. And we are very happy to be joined by local author Marian Keen, who's written a book called Verity, whose themes of integrity, truth, and honor work very well during this kind of discussion. Hi, Marian. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. First of all, tell us a little bit about Verity.
It's a teen fantasy novel, and it's set in 14th century Europe. Story of a young girl. They start out with when she's only a toddler and goes up to when she's 15. And during that time, she experiences a lot of cruel bullying from a person of authority. I like to call her the Dastardly Duchess.
The Dastardly Duchess. Well, and the Dastardly Duchess has a very strong agenda in keeping Verity down in her life. But, you know, the themes that run throughout this I find very interesting in the context of talking about bullying. And that was sort of the context that you wrote the book in, was it not?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. I'm very interested in teenagers. I always have been. And I loved raising my own kids during their teenage years, had parties with them and all kinds of things. And I think teenagers are wonderful. So that, along with having a young girl going through a horrible experience, being bullied by this dastardly duchess, I like to have somebody come through a struggle and win, and so that's the gist of the whole thing. She is called derogatory names. She's made to wear peasant clothes, and she's stripped of her parental support. She's frightened by sexual advances by a bad character in the story. And she survives all this because she knows she's worthwhile, and she has a strong self-esteem, and she has a good friend in Violet. You've met Violet.
Yeah, well, and it's it's fascinating because all those connections and how much were you thinking about? Basically, you've transferred a very common scenario, especially nowadays with people, and something they can relate to in bullying and authority figures and that struggle that many people have, to a medieval context and sort of a fantasy style novel. Why did you put it in that context?
Very good reason. I have written for children since, I started writing in 1980, but I started seriously writing in 1992. And I did a lot of research for the stories that I wrote for children. And a lot of the research was about the medieval days. And so I had that in my head. When I was a child, I was a fan of Grimm's fairy tales and Andersen tales. Yeah. And so the medieval tales and the medieval times are very strong in my mind. So it was kind of natural to set the story there.
You know, Marian, it's so fascinating because I was just reading an article last week about the changes that happen in your brain and in your thinking patterns after you finish a novel, and the effect that reading a novel and putting yourself in a character's place can have on how you're living your life and how you're perceiving the world around you. So it's an interesting entry point for young people to go, okay, I understand some of the things, and I recognize some of the things that are happening with this character, not only from Verity's side, but maybe from her friend Violet's side as well, and makes you realize, hey, wait a second, I can be a better friend in my life.
I hope they get that message. One of the things that I think is that teenagers today need a lot of praise and pumping up and support from their parents and from their teachers to build their self-esteem, I don't think that there would be as much trouble in the schools with bullying if kids had higher self-esteem.
Yeah.
That's a pattern that is something I've been observing for a long time. I don't think that parents can praise their children enough, but it has to be genuine. You know, I think of self-esteem and stress as a seesaw. If you have high self-esteem, you have low stress. If you have high stress, it downs your self-esteem. So it really, you have to build your self-esteem to avoid stress. And, you know, I really think that the major topic that they teach in schools is anxiety.
Right, yes. Well, we all recognize it, right? I mean, we've all gone through it, and that stress that's caused by being in that system, just by being in school and the pressures that come from that. And then you add, the social pressures that come around your peer group, and man, it's a tempest for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. You know, especially if a person has low self-esteem, all they want is to be accepted. And, you know, there's the cool dudes in school that all form cliques and shun the one who needs acceptance.
Yeah.
You know, it's really paramount that kids have the power to turn the bullying around themselves in school. They can accept somebody that is a little bit odd or, you know, somebody that they don't understand,
yeah,
and get to know them and really make a bond, and that would go a long way to ousting all this bullying that's going on. Another point that I would make about it, too, is that it's escalated these days by social media.
Very much so.
Yeah, and the kids can hide anonymously in social media and pick on other kids, and it gives them a sense of power, and it's really dangerous. I think it's like teaching a kid to drive when you say, okay, here's the steering wheel, here's the brake, and here's the gas pedal, now go ahead, drive. Instead of teaching them all the rules of the road and what the responsibilities are that go along with that. And I don't think that is strong enoughly encouraged by both teachers and parents, that children understand how powerful the social media is.
Yeah. Very well said, Marian. And you've done a wonderful job saying all these things and covering these issues in your book as well. It's called Verity. And Marian will be part of a medieval event, an anti-bullying fundraiser hosted by Academy Duello. It's happening downtown Vancouver, 412 West Hastings Street, 412 West Hastings Street on February 21st. That's this weekend from 6 to 8 p.m. Students attend for free. Elementary, high school, post-secondary. You can all go down there for free, and a great event. You'll see all kinds of very interesting things, some dueling and some jousting and some reading from Marian's book as well. Marian, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you very much for having me on, Mike. That's nice.
My pleasure. You've got it on the shift on CKNW News Talk.